Hello my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome back to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet this Scrap Happy tote bag. It's big and roomy. It measures 14 inches long, not counting the handle, and it's about 24 inches around. Big, sturdy, perfect for books, for shopping, for a project bag, or to the beach. And because it's made out of acrylic yarn, it's totally washable. Now I just went ahead and used yarn from my yarn stash because that's what doing Scrap Happy projects is all about. We are happy to use up our scraps and make something super useful. I love this project and I think you are too. It works up really quick because we're doing alternating rows of triple cross stitches and single crochets. The bottom is sturdy because we did the bottom in single crochet stitches, and then we have a nice sturdy band because we also did single crochet stitches. And the handle is not real long. It's made to go across your arm to carry while you're carrying your books or groceries or at the market or just taking your project bag along with you to the yarn store. Alrighty, now you can find this complete pattern with pictures on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. So, to make our Scrap Happy tote bag, you're going to need approximately 10 ounces of medium weight number 4 yarns. And like I said in the intro, I chose to go ahead and use up some of my Vanna's Choice yarns. We've got like a blue mist, a purple mist, a rose mist, taupe mist, and a green mist. And all that is is the yarn has a little bit of variegation in it with white. All right, now I don't know if these particular yarns themselves are still available. I do know that you can still find Vanna's Choice yarns from Lion Brand, Hirschner's, Mary Maxim, and there was one other place that had them online if you want these particular yarns. Now again, this is a Scrap Happy project, and so I'm using yarns from my yarn stash, and I really like how all these yarns play together. Now the bag is stitched up holding 2 strands of yarn together. Okay, and that's where you get all these fun color variations. There's also an orange in here that I don't have any more left of. You can see it in here and here and here. I used all the orange up, and so what I do is when I have about half a skein of yarn left, I wind it up in a cake ball. It makes it really super easy to work with. You can pull it right from the center and work with them together. Now when you're doing 2 strands of yarn, I do recommend that you either roll it into balls or cakes. It just makes it easier when you're pulling 2 strands of yarn at the same time. And I'll show you more about that when we get started. Now we're going to be using a K-hook. And a K-hook is a 6.50 millimeter crochet hook. Sometimes when I'm holding 2 strands together, I'll use a larger hook than a K-hook. But I want this to be nice and tight and compact because this is a nice sturdy bag, even though it has these holes in here, and it's perfect for produce or market shopping, and it makes it good and sturdy. We start with a single crochet rectangle for the bottom. Just makes a really good sturdy shopping bag. And so we're using a 6.50 millimeter crochet hook. I have a needle here for weaving in ends, and then of course my pair of scissors. And again, you need approximately 10 ounces of your medium weight number 4 yarns. We're going to be holding 2 strands of our yarn together. And this is part of the reason that I like to roll it into 2 cakes, because I can pull a strand from the top, which is the center of my 2 cakes, and hold them together. If you are using one skein of yarn, you can pull from the inside and the outside, whether it's a cake or a skein of yarn. Another way to do that is if you don't have a cake winder, that's totally fine. You can roll it into 2 balls and then pull one strand of yarn off of each of your balls of yarn. And that way you can hold your 2 strands together and crochet with them as though they're one strand of yarn. So I've got my 2 strands of yarn that I'm holding together. And as I work, I will pull a little bit like this. It's just a gentle pull to keep them from getting droopy. You don't want it to droop down. You want them to stay nice and even together. So we're going to begin with a slip knot. And we're going to chain 25 chains. We're going to be working on that bottom rectangle of our bag first, and then we'll work up the body of our bag. So I'm holding 2 strands together and I'm stitching 25 chains. I've stitched 25 chains. Now we're going to stitch a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. We'll never count the loop on our hook. So there's 1, 2. So we'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. Now it's going to appear like you have 2 loops on your hook when working with 2 strands, but you need to count that as 1 loop, okay? Because as you hold your 2 strands together, it counts as 1 strand. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those chains, working all the way across our row. One single crochet in each chain across. I stitched 1 single crochet in each of my chains across. Now we started in the second chain from the hook, so we have 24 single crochets. I chained 1 and we're going to turn our work. And now we're just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those stitches across. Now our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so I started right in that first single crochet because we want to have 24 single crochets on this row also. All right, so I'm stitching 1 single crochet in each of my single crochets all the way across. I completed row 2, stitching 1 single crochet in each of our single crochets across. So I have 24 single crochets. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to repeat this row 2, 1 single crochet in each all the way across, and we're going to repeat this for 4 more rows, and that'll give us 6 rows of single crochets for the bottom of our bag. All right, so we're going to repeat row 2 for 4 more rows. I have repeated row 2 for 4 more rows, so I have 6 rows of just single crochet. Each row has 24 single crochet stitches. All right, so what we're going to do is, here's where we ended. I chained 1, and we're going to work down this side. So in this first side of the stitch, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Now we're going to evenly stitch 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you want to try to stitch in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. Now in this last area here on this loop of this stitch, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. So that gave us 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to turn and we're going to work across this bottom, and this is where we began with our first chain. And so we're going to stitch 1 stitch in each of those chains, and that's working the other side of our chain where we started. So we're going to have 24 single crochets across the bottom of our chain. One single crochet in each of those stitches across till we reach this next corner. I stitched all the way across. I have 24 single crochets. I'm to the corner, so I'm going to stitch 2 single crochets in that corner. 1 and 2. Now we're going to stitch 4 just like we did on this side. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so now we'll go to this stitch here. We'll go right in there and stitch 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. And so the last thing we have to do for row 7 is we're going to stitch all the way across here on that row of single crochets. And again, we need to have 24 single crochets. We stitched all the way across, 1 single crochet in each, brings us right where we started. Here's our last stitch. We're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and chain 3 because I want that to hold while we talk about this. All right, so you're going to have 24 single crochets plus 8, which is 32. Then you'll have 24 plus 8, which is 32. And of course, 32 plus 32 is 64 single crochets. So all the way around here, you'll have 64 total single crochets. All right, we're going to take out 2 of those loops on our chain 3 because we just want a chain 1. I put 3 there just so it would hold so I could talk about what we had just completed. All right, so we've got a chain 1 there. And what we're going to do is we're going to work in the back loops only. And we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those single crochets around. All right, so the back loops, if you look on your work, you'll see there's a loop here and a loop here on each of your stitches. The loop that's facing you is your front loop. The loop that's away from you is your back loop. All right, so I'm going to go in that first back loop of that first single crochet and stitch a single crochet. And then I'll go in each of my single crochets all the way around and stitch a single crochet. And so we're going to have a total of 64 single crochets. And the reason we're stitching in the back loops is this is going to help our bag have a nice sharp edge, or so that you can see how it will lay nice and pretty. And you'll know you're doing it right if you see this loop row, because those are the loops we didn't stitch in. And see how I'm just going right around that corner? We're not adding any stitches. We're not subtracting any. We're stitching 1 single crochet in each of our single crochets around, stitching in the back loops only. And we'll do this all the way around and join back to our first single crochet. So I stitched 1 single crochet in each of my back loops, working all the way around, all 4 sides. We didn't add any extra stitches or do any decreases. So you're going to have 64 single crochets all the way around. We joined to our first single crochet and chained 1. And you'll know that you did that right if you see that row right there of those loops that we didn't stitch in. So now what we're going to do is we chained one, and we're just going to stitch one single crochet in each of the stitches around. We're not stitching in the back loops only on that one row. And so we're just going to stitch one single crochet in each of the single crochets, working all the way around our bag. Now, make sure you have 64 single crochet stitches, that you didn't accidentally lose one or gain one anywhere, because we need to be at 64 for the body of our bag. All right, so I'm stitching one single crochet in each of the single crochets around. I stitched that row of single crochet, not stitching in the back loops only, and you'll notice that the sides of your bag are starting to stand up. Exactly what we want it to do. I joined to my first single crochet, and this time I chained 3. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And what we're going to do now is stitch one double crochet in each of those single crochets around. I call this a setup row. We're going to be stitching alternating rows of triple twists or triple crossovers, and we're going to be alternating that with single crochet rows. But I wanted to have a nice double crochet row in there for a nice, what I call, setup row. All right, and so that's what we're doing on this row, is just stitching one row of double crochet in each of our single crochets around. Now I do notice that I have a knot here, and I'll take care of that using a join. But one thing I wanted to mention is that I'm doing my demo all in the same 2 colors. You can change colors as often as you want to, and of course whatever your yarn stash lengths are. And I like to use the Russian join to join my yarns together, which is what I'll do with this one in a few minutes. But you can use whatever style of join that you like. You can bring it in on the last loops of your stitch, or whatever works best for you. I think this bag looks best when lots of different colors are used. Even though this one looks like mint chocolate, it's turning out rather nicely. But this is just the demo. My other bag, I used a lot of different colors in it, and I changed colors often. And the color changes, of course, are up to you and your yarn stash. All right, so for row 10, we're just stitching one double crochet in each of our single crochets all the way around. So I have completed this row of one double crochet in each of the single crochets around. And this is where you need to make sure you have 64 double crochets. If by chance you added an extra stitch, which sometimes is easy when you join, you accidentally add a stitch, you can always do a decrease stitch to get you back down, if you added an extra stitch, to get you back down to 64 stitches if you need to. Because for the remainder of our bag, we need to have 64 stitches. All right, so I joined to my chain 3, and on this row I'm going to chain 4. We're going to be doing triple cross stitches. All right, so here's my chain 4. I'm going to put 2 wraps on my hook. I'm going to cross back to the previous stitch and go from back to front, yarn over and pull up a loop. All right, so you're going to have 4 loops on your hook. It's going to look like more because remember, we're using 2 strands. Yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through the next 2, yarn over and go through the last 2. That's our triple cross stitch. All right, so now we're going to go over. Now this is the stitch that we stitched in. See where it goes in there? So we're going to skip the next stitch and we're going to triple stitch in the next. We're going to triple stitch by crossing back in the previous stitch. And you can see now we have 2 cross stitches made. Now where mistakes are made sometimes is we accidentally stitch back in this stitch. All right, so 2 wraps, we're going to skip this stitch and stitch a triple in the next. 2 wraps, and we'll cross back and stitch in the stitch that we skipped. And you need to pay real close attention to that because you don't want to accidentally stitch in a stitch that you've already stitched in, as it will mess up your count around. All right, so 2 wraps, this is where we stitched in. So we're going to skip the next one and then stitch in the next, that triple stitch. 2 wraps, cross back from back to front and stitch our triple in that skipped stitch. And again, that's where our counts get off sometimes because we have to pay attention where that stitch was stitched in and skip the next one. So here's where we just stitched. We're going to skip this stitch, stitch our triple in the next, then cross back and stitch our triple in the stitch that we skipped. And see how that looks? It makes nice big stitches. It does have big holes, and holes are important when you're purchasing produce or cold things. They need to have some air in there. And always remember when you're making bags for grocery shopping to make them out of washable yarns or washable materials that can be washed, because produce and frozen items can leave moisture and also dirt off your produce. Doesn't always get washed off at the grocery store or at the market, and so you want to make sure that you're able to wash those bags so you don't have any bacteria growing inside your bag. All right, so what we're doing is we're going to continue to stitch these triple cross stitches all the way around, and then I'll show you how to join back over here. It's not as complicated as you might think. I have completed my cross stitch row, and I have 32 triple cross stitches, and that's the total that you should have. When you get to your last cross stitch and you look at the one we did at the beginning, you're going to join to that chain, and the chain is what comes out here from behind. And so you're going to join to that chain with a slip stitch, and we're just going to chain 1. That's how you make it look like a continuous row of cross stitches. All right, now for this next row, we're going to do a row of single crochets. And stitching in the tops of the cross stitches can be a little bit confusing. And so I like to try to look at it from the top. Instead of looking at it from the side, look at it from the top. And you want to make sure you put a single crochet right in that first chain 3. And then you're going to put a single crochet in each of those stitches around. And it's easier if you just look at the top and place 1 single crochet in each of those stitches. It makes it a lot easier, and it goes a lot faster on this row as well. All right, so you're placing 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, whether it's the triple or the cross back that makes the triple cross stitch. And you want to make sure that when you get around there, you have 64 single crochets. I have completed row 12, which is 1 single crochet in each of our stitches around. So you're going to have 64 single crochets. We joined to the first single crochet and chained 4. And that's because we're going to be continuing to alternate row 11, which is our cross stitch row, and row 12, which is our single crochet, for an additional 14 more rows, alternating every other row. Now, if you want your bag longer, of course, you can add more rows. If you want it shorter, do less rows. But we're going to continue to repeat row 11 and row 12 for 14 more rows. So here is my actual bag, not my demo like what we were working on, and I think it turns out beautiful. Isn't that just gorgeous how all those different colors play together? And you can do that too. It doesn't have to be Vanna's Choice yarn. There are lots of beautiful colors that play well together in your yarn stash, I am sure. All right, so here is where I join back to my first single crochet. I'm going to chain 1, and what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 3 more rows of just 1 single crochet in each of our single crochets around. Now, if you wanted to make your bag longer, you can go ahead and repeat the cross stitch row single crochet for a longer bag, but I really love the size of this one, and so I'm going to do those 3 rows of single crochet. So basically we're just repeating, stitching 1 single crochet in each of our single crochets around, join back to our first single crochet, chain 1, and repeat. And we're doing this for 3 more rows. This will give us 4 rows of just single crochet at the top of our bag. That'll give us a nice band to hold our handle. So I completed those repeats. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of just single crochet. That's going to give us a nice sturdy band at the top of our bag. And now we can add our handle. All right, so we're going to go over here to the side. We joined to our single crochet and chained 1. And we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in this stitch and then in the next 5 for 6 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I want you to look at this and make sure that you're lined up even with the side of your bag. Sometimes when we're stitching around like this where we join, we can accidentally get off of our evenness. So make sure it's nice and even on the side of your bag. All right, you may have to slip stitch over some, or you may have to go back. Just make sure that your 6 stitches are lined up evenly. So we stitch 6, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And now we're just going to stitch rows of single crochet in those 6 stitches. And I didn't make this handle real long. I want it to be long enough where you can carry it and put your produce in, but not so long that it's going to get all stretched out. All right, so we stitched 1 single crochet in those 6, chain 1 and turn and repeat. And we're going to do this until the length of the handle that we want. Now I'm going to be repeating this for 17 more rows, and you can adjust this by how long you would like your handle. Just keep in mind when you put things in your bag, they're going to get heavy. I like it to be long enough to put my arm through so I can carry it, but not so long as to put my shoulder through because I don't want my bag to be overly stretched out. All right, so I'm going to do an additional 17 rows. Okay, so let me make a correction here. After looking at my notes, I said an additional 17 rows. You need to do an additional 27 rows. This needs 10 more rows. All right. So I did the 17 and I'm going to do 10 more rows. All right, so that is so much better. I looked at my notes wrong. It was supposed to be 27, not 17. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this side over here. All right, we want to do it so that we're attaching it this way. All right, and so we're going to make sure we're all lined up with the side. Everything looks nice and neat. And of course, you can count your stitches and make sure it's where you want it to be. I'm going to grab my yarns here and pull them to this side so I can work. And I pulled my pink one out there, so I'm going to, there we go. Put that chain one back in there. All right, now we want to be careful not to twist our handle. And again, if you want your handle longer, you certainly can make it longer. All right, so we're going to, I'll take my hook out a little bit, make my loops bigger so I don't lose them this time. Make sure everything's lined up nice and even. We'll go in that first stitch and we'll grab that loop. Make it smaller, there we go. And we'll pull that through and do a slip stitch. We'll go to the next one. So we're just slip stitching the handle on. Let's see, I think I skipped a loop there. Let's go back. There we go. Don't want to have my handle puckered up. There we go. Looks like one more loop. And we'll go ahead and chain one. Now, this may not be strong enough. You may feel like it's not going to hold. And so what I do is I turn and I go back through it again. All right, so I just go right back through those two stitches and slip stitch again. It just reinforces it so we won't, especially if you're going to put like oranges or cantaloupes in your bag, you want to make sure that it's going to hold. So we're just going back the other way, the string there, making sure we go through both sides and stitching slip stitches. There we go. Put a little extra one there on that end just so it stays put. And then we can go ahead and cut that and weave that in. And you can look and see it's on there a lot sturdier. It's not going anywhere. And we'll just grab our needles. If you're not comfortable with the slip stitches, you can always do whip stitches with your needle. Both will hold it just fine, and you can do whatever, like I always say, you do what works best for you. Push that back through there. There we go. Whoops. Guess I need to sharpen that pair of scissors. All right. So now you have a shorter handle that you can put your arm through, and a nice sturdy shopping bag. I love this bag. I know I say this a lot, but I really am going to keep this one. All right, so that's our Scrap Happy tote bag. You can use it for a project bag, grocery shopping, or even just use it as your purse.